There's a deep purport here.
Oh, I think I know what may be unfolding.
We are live.
Okay.
I'll start.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you. Welcome to our ISKCON Naperville Sunday Fish class. Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you fine. Are you doing the introduction now, or should I start?
Yes, Prabhu. I'm going to do introduction.
Oh, okay, all right, cool.
Thank you. Yes. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Hare Shyam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Welcome to our Sunday feast. His Grace Hare Shyam Prabhu is going to give a class today. The topic is how to be sharks. I'm very curious to understand what the sharks are. So a little intro about Hare Shyam Prabhu. He is the director of the Sanctuary, a meditation and a wisdom center near downtown Chicago. He's been practicing distributing spiritual literatures and teachings from mantra meditation and yoga as his full-time engagement last 7 years. He holds a bachelor's degree in economics and formerly worked at the History Channel. Besides loving to meditate, study, and share ancient wisdom, Prabhuji loves bhelpuris. So now he's going to share what is this sharks is about. And we get to hear from him. Prabhu, thank you so much. Please go ahead, Prabhuji.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tudati Swapadantikam Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauru Tushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namoste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhishta Kripa Sindhu Peyocha Patitanam Bhavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachana Mangalam Venkatekaran Yat Kripatam Hamde Shri Guru Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening for our Sunday Feast lecture on how to become a shark. It's the month of Kartik, and so in my conversation with Sumagala Mataji, let me see if there's a way to see some of you, that would be really nice. Okay, great. If any of you feel comfortable, feel free to turn on your video. It's nice to see some faces. Maybe Adam, you can sit right in front of me. That way I know I'm speaking to someone. There's someone here in my room. I just asked him to sit right in front of me so I can. So it's the month of Kartik, which, as we're all practicing devotees of Krishna, we understand to be extremely auspicious in terms of bringing mercy into our spiritual practice by the mercy of Srimati Radharani. And so in my conversation with Sumangala Mataji, we thought to have a presentation which is ultimately going to be about glorifying Giri Govardhan. I believe all of you here are practicing devotees, so I don't need to introduce who Giri Govardhan is, right? Everybody here is a practicing devotee, isn't it? All of you are familiar with Giriraj? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, no? Okay. So we're ultimately going to discuss Giriraj Govardhan. But before we discuss the glories of Giriraj, and I would like to read something for all of your pleasure from one particular book by Sri Kavi Karnapur about the pastimes that take place underneath Govardhan Hill. We all know the story of how Indra, his worship is stopped by Krishna, and therefore out of anger, he starts raining thunderstorm upon Vrindavan. We all know that pastime very well. And then we know that Krishna held up Govardhan Hill for 7 days with his little finger. Yes, we're all familiar with this pastime. And then we know that after 7 days, Indra realizes his mistake. He stops the thunderstorms, and Krishna places the hill back in Vrindavan, and all the Brijbasis come out. Actually, they come out first, then he places the hill down, obviously, because he can't place the hill down while the Brajvasis are still underneath. So we all know this story, isn't it? It happens for 7 days, but there's very little information about what happens during those 7 days, right? So there's 7 days, all the devotees in Vrindavan, the cows, the cowherd girls, the Mother Yashoda, the cowherd boys, they're spending 7 days with Krishna underneath this hill, but there's very little information about what kind of pastimes, what activities, and what conversations take place underneath. So Ananda Vrindavan Champu, which is a book by Sri Kavi Karnapur, describes in great detail some of the conversations that take place between Krishna and his dear devotees, which we will read, and will give us a window into those pastimes, the loving pastimes. But before we get there, I would like to talk to you a little bit about what does it mean to become a shark. Our conversation today will begin with this. It will dive into this topic of what is love, what is true love, how do we understand what true love is, how do we practice living a life with true love, and then how we need examples to bring us to the path of true love. And that is what Giriraj Govardhan represents. So that is going to be sort of the journey we'll go on today. What does it mean to become a shark? In the Nectar of Devotion, a book by Srila Rupa Goswami, which is written as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Prabhupada translated it as Nectar of Devotion. The Acharyas use the analogy of a shark. And this is what Srila Prabhupada writes. Let me share with you what he writes. This is in the first chapter of Nectar of Devotion. Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the great devotees and Acharyas who are compared to sharks in the great ocean of nectar and who do not care for the various rivers of liberation. So the great devotees and Acharyas are being compared to sharks in the ocean of devotion. Now, why sharks? Those who are pure devotees always remain in the ocean of transcendental loving service to the Lord and have no business with the other processes, which are compared to the rivers that only gradually come to the ocean. So the other processes like impersonal liberation or karma yoga and ashtanga yoga, these are compared to like rivers. But the great devotees and acharyas are like sharks who are swimming in the deep ocean. This is one analogy. Another way to understand this analogy is that when you look at the ocean, right, if a storm takes place in the ocean, right? Has anybody, by the way, ever been on a ship before? Have you ever been on a boat, Adam? You ever been on a boat, Rahel? Has anybody online ever been on a boat, a ship? Anybody online? Prabhuji, no? Mataji, no? Panduranga Gopal Prabhu, no? Okay. I can tell you right now, it can be a little scary, especially when there's a storm or there's a little bit of shakiness and the weather is bad and the boat starts to rock from side to side. There's definitely a feeling of like, you're in the middle of this ocean and there's like nothing but water all around. It's a little scary. But the acharyas explain, just like when a storm hits the ocean, it only affects the surface. So those fish that are swimming on the surface of the ocean are very disturbed by the ocean of material, but the storms of material existence. But the sharks are swimming deep inside the ocean and they're completely unaffected by the turbulence, the storms, the waves. So this is the analogy the acharyas use to explain what is a shark in a devotional context. Sharks are great devotees who are unconcerned about other processes of devotion. And they swim so deep in the ocean of devotion that they're unaffected by the storms of material existence. And the storms are many. The storms are many. I mean, I know in my own life, every month something happens, right? Some disturbance happens perhaps in a relationship, something related to work, something now, of course, some of you are aware we're having this transition shift in management in ISKCON Chicago, right? This is a bit of a minor storm. And if we're not deep in our spiritual practice, if we don't have clarity on what's going on, we can be really affected by these storms of material existence. But the reason why the sharks are unaffected, Srila Prabhupada explains here, if you look at this quote, he says, they remain in the ocean of transcendental loving service to the Lord. So I was very fascinated by this concept of love, right? Let me ask some of you a little bit of a personal question. Don't mind, okay? Bit of a personal question. Do any of you online have a love marriage? Did you meet your partner like at college or maybe at the temple? Does anybody want to be brave enough to just raise their hand and say yes? I think I saw Shruti's iPhone. Yep, Shruti's iPhone. So Shruti, she gave me a thumbs up. Yep, Shruti's definitely someone who had a love marriage. And theirs started before we even know what, they were like kids practically, like 10 or 12 years old, Does anybody else online have a love marriage? Anybody? No? Okay. So this idea of love is very fascinating, isn't it? And most of you have arranged marriages. So they say in India, you in America, you marry the girl you love. In India, you love the girl you marry, or you're forced to love the girl you marry. Okay, it's a joke. There's no choice. Just parents pick, and then you have to love the person you're married to. So love is a very interesting idea because it's so pervasive. There's so many books written about it, so many poems and movies. People are always talking about it. In fact, especially in American culture where the divorce rate is so high, people are constantly looking for love, right? They go on dating websites like Tinder and Match.com. They're always going on dates. People are just desperate to fall in love, right? People are really looking for this feeling of love. And the great devotees remain immersed in the ocean of transcendental loving service. So is the love that these great devotees are absorbed in, is that the same kind of love that, when a young boy and a young girl fall in love in this material world? Of course, we're practicing devotees. We know it's different, right? We know it's different. But how different, that is a very beautiful and that is a topic really worth diving into a little bit. How is spiritual love different from mundane love? So let us hear just a few verses here from the Shastras and comments from the Acharyas. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela. Lust and love have different characteristics, just as iron and gold have different natures, right? So both are metals, and you can take iron. I'm sure some tricky businessman in India has probably figured out how to take iron, cover it with gold plating and make it look like a gold ring. Someone's probably figured it out. And so, but they have different characteristics. You put iron in water, and then after a while it'll rust so much that you can just break it, it snaps. You put gold in water, nothing happens. Gold can stay in water forever without getting rusted. So they're both metals and they both come from the earth, but they have different characteristics. And please listen to what Srila Prabhupada says in a short but very instructive purport. He says one should try to discriminate between sexual love and pure love, for they belong to different categories with a gulf of difference between them. They are different from one another as iron is from gold. I do a lot of preaching to, you could say, just young Americans, and we often use the word love a lot. And a lot of these young people who come to our programs, they talk about wanting to develop love for everyone and love for the world. And it's hard for them to understand how oftentimes our idea of love in the material world is very different from love in its pure sense. Usually we think of love in the material world as something that makes us feel good, right? Like, for example, I might say to you, I love my phone, I love my car, I love my house, I love my job, because all of these things make me feel good. So we correlate love with how we feel. But spiritual love is something completely different, right? Sometimes in spiritual love, you might not feel good, right? Spiritual love might not feel good sometimes. And to explain this paradox of how real love, spiritual love, may not always be about feeling good in this world, there's a very beautiful verse actually in the Madhya Leela, which I would like to share with you. Let's see if I can sing it in the proper meter. E prema asvadana tapta ikshu charvana mukha jwale nayaya tyajana sei prema yanramane tara vikrama sei jane Veshamrite ekatra milana. Madhya Leela, chapter 2, text 51. If one tastes such love of Godhead, he can compare it to hot sugarcane juice. Interesting analogy. Anybody here in India has had, I know now it's COVID season, so we might be scared of drinking sugarcane juice from the vendor. But I think most of us grew up in India. I did definitely have had lots of sugarcane juice. Anybody else online has had fresh sugarcane juice from the vendor? With the machine rolling, he's bending it so many times you wonder at what point is it going to break the machine, or is he going to stop pushing it through? It's so dry by the end of it, but he just keeps jamming it in. So it's like hot sugarcane juice. When one chews hot sugarcane, his mouth burns, right? Yet he cannot give it up because the taste is so good. It's sweet, so you can't give it up, but hot, so it's burning your mouth. Similarly, it's like I would compare it, if I was giving this class to say like the youth, like 15, 16-year-olds, I would say it's like really good pizza. Like it's hot, so the cheese is burning your mouth, but you can't stop eating it. You pick it up, you're like, the cheese is melting. Like, oh, it's hot, I can't eat it. But the warm mozzarella melting in your mouth tastes so good, So I think maybe if CC was rewritten for the modern age, we would have to change some of these analogies from hot sugar cane to hot pizza, things like that, because the youth might appreciate it better, Your mouth is burning with the cheese, but you can't stop. Similarly, if one has but a little love of Godhead, little bit, he can perceive its powerful effects. It can only be compared to poison and nectar mixed together. And I chose this image of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri when he was at the height of his feelings of ecstasy and he was in the ocean at Jagannath Puri. He couldn't tell that he was in the ocean. He was just feeling such pangs of separation from Krishna. If somebody else saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in these moments of ecstasy, we might have doubts about Krishna consciousness, right? Panduranga Gopalpur, if I told you, like, you keep chanting, you'll become like this, your wife might say, enough, no more chanting. Maybe chant a little less. Chant a little less. Your co-workers might say, Prabhu, too much chanting. For now, it's okay, enough chanting. Okay, no more chanting. This is the result. But actually, this bhav, this ecstasy, this madness is what Krishna consciousness is all about. It's what Prabhupada came to give. It's what Mahaprabhu came to give. So we have no reason to be afraid of it. We should look forward to it. And when that madness comes, others might not understand. Others might look at just like when I was 24 years old, I left my job at the History Channel to join the ashram. I wasn't mad with ecstasy, nothing like that. But even basic Krishna consciousness is confusing to people. I had friends who were like, what are you doing with your life? You're going to leave your job, right? You're going to move into a temple, make no money, sleep on the floor. What's wrong with you? So even like introductory Krishna consciousness is so ecstatic that it makes us do things in the material world that others can't understand, just like, and of course, what to speak of advanced stages of Krishna consciousness. It looks like madness. Mahaprabhu is experiencing madness. And to someone who's external, they may not understand what is this person going through. It doesn't make any sense. So this cultivation of Krishna consciousness is really focused on a simple point of trying to understand and practice living a life that brings us closer to true love. We are aware of love in the material world, right? All of us. I remember when I was young, you fall in love with some girl you see in high school or middle school, or you get married to them. So this is one kind of love, but Krishna consciousness is about cultivating a different kind of love. And we hear about this love in the scriptures, we read about it, and we're given a practice to cultivate it. And that's what real bhakti is all about. So what does it take to understand and experience true love? We need three things, right? You're all familiar with these concepts, but I just thought, before we talk about Govardhan, just a little brief reminder of some of these nice points. I found some nice quotes I can share in this regard. We need three things. We need practice, what we refer to as sadhana. We need mercy, because what is the question of practice without mercy, right? And we need examples. We need three things to understand and experience true love, which is our topic of discussion today. What do we mean by practice? Here's a quote from Jaiva Dharma by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In this particular quote that I've extracted, there is a conversation between Vrajanath, who is one of the characters of Jaiva Dharma, with his guru, Paramahamsa Premdas Babaji. And he's asking this question, that if prema bhakti, or if love of Godhead, is an eternally perfect mood, then why do you have to practice something in order to attain it? If it already exists in its perfection, if pure love already exists, what is basically the question, what is the need to practice? Why do you have to practice trying to capture true love? Right? A lot of people in the modern sense, like young people might think, I'm love. I love everything, right? I love my music. I love this. I love that. But like I was saying in the beginning of my class, our understanding of love has to be fundamentally shifted, because love in the material sense means things that make us feel good, but love in the spiritual sense means something completely different, right? So to understand what real love is, practice is required. So this is what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says about why practice is required. He says, certainly prema bhakti is eternally perfect. Prema bhakti means devotional love or pure devotional service, because it is a manifestation of Bhagavan's internal energy, but it is not evident in the heart of the conditioned soul, right? So if you look at the hearts of conditioned souls, they don't walk around carrying pure love. That's why they can do so many evil things in this world, like hurt children, or I don't know, destroy countries, or we don't walk around with pure love in our hearts. If we did, we wouldn't have so many issues with other people. We wouldn't be so sad all the time. Spiritual practice consists of the efforts of the body, mind, and speech to make that love appear in the heart. So everything that we're meant to be doing in our sadhana our chanting, our daily deity worship. I have a picture here of a devotee offering obeisances to Giriraj Govardhan. Every single practice that's been given to us is ultimately for the aspiration of cultivating love. And I thought that this was a nice point to remind us of, because it's the month of Kartik, which is celebrating the love of Yashoda and Damodar. And so it's a good reminder for all of us, because I think we all chant every day, we all do our deity worship every day. But let us not forget, in the repetition of those activities, that if I don't come one step closer to having love for Krishna today through my practice, then I haven't really accomplished the goal of my practice. It's not just about chanting my rounds. It's not just about doing my deity worship. It's not just about offering my food to Krishna because I'm a devotee, so I offer my food to Krishna. But every act, as much as possible, and I would say this, I heard this from my spiritual master, it's difficult to turn everything in your life as an act of cultivating love, right? Let's start with one small thing. Even if we make a promise to ourselves, okay, tomorrow I chant 16 rounds, I'll chant one round praying to Krishna to give me pure love, at least one round. Even if that's too much, I'll chant one Maha Mantra. But if you have to
We lost Prabhu.
Yes, sir.
Let's wait for you.
And actually, sorry, a skinny person comes and says, can you give me a little room to sit on this bench? So then it's very tight, but people make a little space. I think all of us have been in crowded and make a little space. This skinny person gets inside, he gets a seat. As soon as he sits down, he does pew, pew, and then he calls over his fat Bengali wife and 4 kids, and then he pushes everybody off the bench, and then his wife and kids take over the whole bench. Prabhupada compared Maya like that. You let a little bit of Maya in, and then she calls her associates. But it works the same with Krishna consciousness. We let a little bit of real Krishna consciousness enter into our hearts, and that'll grow and expand. So like I'm suggesting, we do our practices every day. Why don't we make a commitment during the month of Kartik to pick just one activity? It could be like, offering your food to Krishna. It could be at least one rounds. It could be just offering obeisances in the morning. One simple practice that each and every one of us can commit to ourselves, commit to our deities, that say, I'll do this, Krishna, today because I want pure love for you. I want love to manifest in my heart. So I'm doing this particular practice with this particular intention. Ideally, we should do everything with that intention, but it's hard. I know from experience, it's hard. It's hard to do everything with that intention, So at least if we can start with one. Srila Prabhupada writes in Madhya Lila 868 on this topic of practice. He says, the first stage is technically called sadhana bhakti, or devotional service and practice. The result of sadhana bhakti must be ecstatic love, attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is also called prema bhakti. So again, Srila Prabhupada is saying the result of sadhana must be ecstatic love. In other words, we must do our practice on a daily and regular basis, aspiring for love. Because bhakti is the path of cultivating feelings for Krishna. It's not just the path of doing activities that look devotional. It's actually the path of cultivating feelings for Krishna and his devotees. And that's the most important thing. However, we need something more than just practice. We also need mercy. And what better time of the year to talk about the importance of mercy than the Kartik, than the Damodar month, right? Because this is the month that signifies the importance of mercy. Here's a quote from Sri Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, 10th Canto, Chapter 9, Text 18. So all of you are familiar with the Damodar Leela. Krishna is running away from his mother out of fear. And she's afraid that if my Lala runs into the forest, the acharyas explain, he's a naughty boy. So I better tie him up so I can feed him nicely and take care of him. Because if he's naughty, he'll just run off into the forest. You know what I'm saying? If I don't control him now, I have to. And also, Mother Yashoda was thinking I should do it strongly. I should chastise him strongly so he can learn a lesson. Otherwise, he'll just run off into the forest and get lost. So she finally catches hold of Krishna and she tries to tie him down. And no matter how many times the rope goes around, it's 2 fingers too short. We've heard this story so many times. But let us hear what Sri Vishwanath says is the purport of those 2 fingers. Thus, seeing his mother becoming tired, because Krishna saw his mother was trying so many times to tie him, and she wasn't able to. Sweat was coming on her brow. Her bangles were clanging. Her sari was getting loose. She was getting frustrated. No matter how much rope she added, she just couldn't tie Krishna. Thus, seeing his mother becoming tired, the Lord gave up his own stubbornness, and by his mercy allowed himself to be tied. His mercy is the king of all Shaktis. Now, this is a very deep point. Why is Krishna's mercy the king of all of his energies? Because actually, mercy is more powerful than justice, isn't it? Like say for example, I I do something wrong to one of you and I seek your forgiveness. Now, justice would demand that you do something wrong back to me or you punish me. That is one level of reaction. But a higher level of reaction is you just forgive me and let me go. That is mercy. So mercy is described as the king of all Krishna's Shaktis, because mercy is when mercy awakens in Krishna's heart, Krishna himself, his own heart melts. So it says there, his mercy is the king of all Shaktis, illuminating all else. It melts the heart of God as if it were butter. That's beautiful. So when Krishna feels compassion towards another jiva, his heart melts. The shortage of two fingers was filled by effort and mercy. So one finger is effort, Mother Yashoda's effort. The other finger is mercy. The effort and fatigue due to service and worship, right? So the devotee in his service will experience some effort and fatigue. And the mercy of the Lord arising from seeing that effort and fatigue. These are the two things. These two cause the Lord to be bound. The Lord himself showed to his mother how only love can bind him. What a beautiful point, right? Many times devotees wonder, how will I get to Godhead? How will I have pure devotion? How will my heart become pure? Well, it's a combination. We have to make the effort. And seeing the determination of our effort, then Krishna's heart melts. And that effort happens in our own in our own lives in an individual, personal, private way, right? For example, many of you have full-time jobs, very important careers, and sometimes it might be tough. How do you manage your career and making sure that the kids have your time, needs of the family, and you chant your rounds, and you do your service, and you do your deity worship, and you read Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's books, and you find time to preach? That must be quite challenging, isn't it? So others may not know, right? Others may not know how much you're working to fulfill all your daily services and obligations and maintain your families. But Krishna sees that effort. And when he sees that it's 10 o'clock at night, you've been busy all day, you haven't had a moment to yourself, you have 4 rounds left. So what you do, you get up, you wash your face, you tell Krishna, I will not go to sleep without chanting my rounds. He's watching. Even if those rounds don't have so much taste because you're tired, he appreciates the effort that you didn't give up on your practice. This gradually melts the heart of Krishna. This brings mercy into our life. So we should never think that, oh, what is the use? Mother Yashoda never gave up. She kept trying to tie Krishna. She could have just given up at some point, because it is kind of mystical, right? The rope goes all the way around and it stops right there. It stops right there, like right there. You might just give up at some point, like this is hopeless, this is hopeless. But she shows through her example, she doesn't give up trying to tie Krishna. And in the same spirit, Prabhupada wanted us, and the acharyas are telling us, don't give up. Even if it seems like the result isn't coming, you might find that, oh, my mind is still not pure. I'm still not able to get absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. I don't have feelings for Krishna. No worries. Keep trying. Krishna's heart is melting. With every effort that we make that takes a little strain from our side, his heart melts. So then we come to our final point. Our final, you could say, the 3 things I mentioned: practice, mercy, and example. We now come to example. Why are examples so important in the path of understanding pure love and true love? This is our topic of discussion today. Is pure love is completely different from mundane love. And Prabhupada told us you have to study the difference. You have to know the difference. So to know the difference, to understand what is pure love, I mentioned we need 3 things: practice, mercy, and examples. And now we come to the point of examples. But before I share a little bit about what I have to share, I would like to play you a little audio clip from Srila Prabhupada. Is that okay? It's only about 45 seconds long. It's from a lecture that Srila Prabhupada gave called Windows to the Spiritual World. And I think it explains very, succinctly and very beautifully in Prabhupada's own pure transcendental sound vibration, the importance of having examples in our spiritual practice. So please hear carefully. It's only a few seconds long.
If we take it very seriously, then we become gradually advanced and eligible or fit candidate to go into the spiritual world. Dibbag-vindyaranna kalbudhrmada. We can go there. That is what. Be serious. Don't be misled by the allurement of Maya. Remain strong. And then in this life, you'll be able to become fit candidate to go back to home, back to Godhead. Dibbag-vindyaranna kalbudhrmada. he will also be one of the associates of Krishna as you desire. Krishna will give you the opportunity to serve him as you desire. If you want to serve him as gopi, you'll get that position. If you want to serve him as coward's boyfriend, you'll get that opportunity. If you want to serve Krishna, following the footsteps of Mother Jasoda, accepting Krishna as your son, you'll get it. Accepting Krishna as your son and Nanda Maharaj following. We have to follow their principle. Not that I shall become Nanda Maharaj or I shall become Jasoda. No, that is Maya. You have to follow how they are loving Krishna. You have to learn that. Then you'll get the chance of Krishna's association.
First of all, I just want to appreciate, isn't it beautiful to just hear Prabhupada's words with like focus? It's so purifying, right? I hear the sound of my own voice and I'm like, ugh. But then you hear Prabhupada's vibration, you're like, wow, this is like something purely transcendental. But Prabhupada makes some very powerful points here. The first thing he tells us is that we can go to the spiritual world if we're serious. And to do that, we will have to follow in the examples of the residents of Vrindavan, right? Prabhupada says here that you will also be one of the associates of Krishna as you desire. Krishna will give you the opportunity to serve him as you desire. So you can see how ultimately going back to Godhead is like this beautiful dance between our desire and Krishna's mercy. We have to have some desire and Krishna reciprocates with that. And then Prabhupada gives examples. You can follow in the footsteps of the gopis. You can follow in the footsteps of the cowherd boyfriends of Mother Yashoda. And then Srila Prabhupada says, not that we think we will become Nanda Maharaj or Yashoda or Radharani. No. He says, you have to follow how they're loving Krishna. You have to learn that. Then you will get the chance of Krishna's association. So this is really at the heart of my presentation today, that if we want to become sharks and swim in the ocean of transcendental loving service, then we have to understand what is true love, pure love. And to understand true love and pure love, we need three things: practice, mercy, and examples. And the examples is what Srila Prabhupada is referring to over here. And perhaps one of the greatest examples of understanding what is pure love in Vrindavan is Giriraj Govardhan. There's a very beautiful verse here that you can recite with me if you like. Hantayam madrabala haridasa varyo yadrama Krishna charana sparasha pramodaha manam tanoti sahago ganayostayor yat pani asuya vasakandara kandamulai. This is a verse recited by the gopis as they are planning a escape to go see Krishna playing on the foothills of Govardhan Hill. The gopis are at their, they're talking amongst each other, and they're thinking, we will go to Giriraj and we will take bath in Manasi Ganga and take darshan of Haridev, the deity of Haridev. And Krishna will also be there playing in the foothills of Govardhan. And this is a good excuse. The gopis can tell their parents, please let us go because we're going to take bath in Manasi Ganga. So before they go there, they're glorifying Govardhan. And they say like this, of all the devotees, this Govardhan Hill is the best. Why is it the best? Somebody could say, there's so many wonderful devotees, like Yashoda is there, Subal is there, Chitrak is there, Patrak is there, the cows are there. Why Govardhan is the best, right? Somebody could raise this question. Oh, my friends, this hill supplies Krishna and Balaram along with their calves, cows, and cowherd friends with all kinds of necessities. In other words, this Govardhan Hill is facilitating the pleasure of Krishna and his devotees by supplying some wonderful necessities like water for drinking, very soft grass, caves, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. I was discussing this verse with a friend of mine, and we were just discussing how when we were kids, I don't know if any of you did this, when we were kids, we used to go exploring. I grew up in West Africa, very tropical place, a lot of swamps and forests and jungly type places. And we used to go exploring, we used to like find ourselves going into like deep, dark jungle type places, finding little ponds and lakes. I don't know if any of you did that growing up, but as a kid, there is a spirit of adventure and there's a spirit of curiosity. And imagine finding a playground where you could drink the water. There's fruits growing on the trees that you could just pluck and eat. There's caves where you could enter into with your friends and play around. There's waterfalls. There's all kinds of, in fact, it's described by the Acharyas that the stones of Govardhan, they produce some kind of minerals, colored minerals. And oftentimes the boys would take those minerals and rub each other and they would paint Krishna with those minerals. I mean, as a kid, that sounds like ecstatic. Like, I mean, what could be more fun? Nowadays, kids have hoverboards and stuff, but that's lame compared to like caves and waterfalls and fruits and flowers growing on trees. I mean, we make the best. My nephew has a hoverboard too, so I was just watching him play with his hoverboard and I was like, this is cool, but imagine if you could go to a place like that. So the gopis are saying that this Govardhan Hill is the best of devotees because look at how much he's giving. Look at how much he's giving for the pleasure of Krishna and his devotees. In other words, the gopis are saying the greatest devotees are those who can facilitate the pleasure of others. This is, I guess, as we're trying to understand what true love is, this is one of the first symptoms of real love. When one has more of a desire to satisfy others, especially Krishna and his devotees, than one's own self. And this ability to give, and the more one gives, the greater they become, that the gopis are appreciating in this verse. In this way, the hill offers respects to the Lord. And being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, Govardhan Hill appears very jubilant. Very beautiful concluding point of this verse, that the hill appears very jubilant. The acharyas explain, so what happens when you're cold? Sometimes when you're cold, you get goosebumps, right? Your hairs stand on end, isn't it? Like sometimes, I don't know if any of you have had that experience, or maybe if you're going to a very important interview, you're nervous, sometimes you get goosebumps, right? Goosebumps are considered another symptom of ecstasy. When you're feeling ecstatic, your hair might stand on end. And how is that represented on Govardhan? The soft grass. The acharyas explain that all the grass that's growing around Govardhan Hill are the symptoms of his ecstasy. It's standing tall and upright. Another symptom of Govardhan's ecstasy is that the rocks become soft. As soon as Krishna and Balaram set their foot on Govardhan Hill, then the rocks, responding to the ecstasy of coming in contact with Krishna, they become soft. And that's why there's places where you can go, where there's temples built worshiping foot imprints of Krishna on Govardhan Hill. There's actually places where there's imprints, and the great acharyas have shown, and yeah, this is actually Krishna's footprint, the outline of Krishna's foot on the stones at Govardhan Hill. There's even a place I remember where they'll show you that there's this flat rock and there's like little indentations made, like little cups almost, and apparently this is one of the places where the cowherd boys would sit and eat, and in the little cavities they would put their sabjis and their vegetables. So now, okay, somebody could say, what is the scientific evidence for all this? Well, the scientific evidence is that the great devotees said it and we believe it. This is our scientific evidence. We don't need any more evidence than that because we are devotees. So we accept that truth can come beyond one's sensual experience. Truth can exist beyond one's sensual experience. We have that conviction. So therefore, if some great devotees say that this is Krishna's footprint, we accept. He's a great devotee. He's not going to lie. We accept. So in this way, we are getting a glimpse into what does it mean to have pure love. It means to be someone like Giriraj Govardhan. It means to facilitate happiness and pleasure for others. I thought now, by the way, Prabhu, till when do we stop for questions and answers and comments?
We can stop at 6:20, Prabhuji. So we can have 10 minutes of questions.
Oh, perfect. Okay, and then we'll have 10 minutes of questions. Perfect. So what I'd like to do now, with your permission, is I want to read to you with some background music here to facilitate concentration. I want to read to you a passage from Ananda Vrindavan Champu that is going to describe some of the very delightful and colorful and beautiful dialogue that takes place underneath Govardhan Hill. We all know that Krishna held up Govardhan Hill for 7 days with his pinky finger. And in those 7 days, as you can see here in this image, very beautiful image, that the cowherd boys, Nanda Maharaj, even Balaram, they're also holding up their clubs, thinking we will also help Krishna, why Krishna alone should hold up the hill. This is so cute, right? First of all, he's a little boy holding up a mountain. I mean, that by itself is, but then they're thinking, no, we should help. That's even more incredible. So this is the nature of love, is that we forget, in the nature of love of the Brijvasis, such that they forget that Krishna is God, he doesn't need any help, but they are showing their love like this. So I thought I would read to you just some of the dialogue, some of the activities that take place underneath Govardhan Hill during those 7 days. Does that sound like a good idea? Would you all like to hear some pastimes like that? Okay, wonderful. Just give me 1 second because my throat's really dry. Can I get a little water?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Maybe that. Thank you so much. Let's get a little water here. I don't want to sound like a frog. I already don't have a great voice, but too dry for throat. I'll sound like a frog. Okay, I request you now, I'm going to play a little flute in the background just to help with concentration. But I request you now that if you're multitasking or anything like that, which is totally understandable because it's evening, maybe some of you are cooking dinner, just give 5 minutes of your time to hear directly from the lotus pen of Sri Kavi Karnapur about the different pastimes that take place beneath Govardhan Hill. It is so exquisite, and I guarantee you that if you can just give the next 5 to 7 minutes to this, you will feel very you will appreciate very much. And it's coming straight from the acharyas, and I think you'll feel very joyful. I think you'll feel very joyful to hear these descriptions. So without further ado, let me just pull it up here. This is from a book called Ananda Vrindavan Champu. And for those of you who are curious as to where this material is from, and I have it right here. Where did it go? Sorry, give me a second. I had it open just a second ago. Did I close it? Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. So our reading begins at the point when all the devotees, all the different devotees, the gopis, the gopas, the cows, they're all now situated underneath Govardhan Hill. And Krishna is in the middle, and he's holding up the hill, and all the gopis and all the gopas are all surrounding him in a circle, right? Are you able to hear me clearly and also hear the flute? Is it good? Okay. Thus, the venerable Vrajvasis relished great joy associating intimately with Krishna. They no longer felt any fear or discomfort from Indra's deluge. They never felt any discomfort from Indra's thundering of rainstorms, which threatened to destroy the whole world. The rain falling from the roaring clouds sounded like water pouring from the mouths of many large pots. Although situated in different directions, all the Brijbasis gazed to their heart's content at the lotus face of Giridhari, the lifter of Govardhan Hill. Each devotee saw that Krishna was looking directly at him. Feeling relieved, the illustrious Brahmanas offered abundant blessings to the blissful younger brother of Balaram. Krishna descended on earth to perform his transcendental pastimes and crush the pride of the demons and the demigods. While holding up Govardhan Hill, Krishna was surrounded by all of his loving associates. Taking advantage of the intimate setting, they gazed at Krishna with joyful faces, prayed for his victory, or affectionately smelled his head. Being saturated with parental affection, Mother Rohini firmly embraced her son Balaram, who always gives immense pleasure to his parents. This is a very unique detail because never before have all the different relationships in Vrindavan simultaneously relished Krishna's beauty, right? Because when Krishna is with his parents, he's not with his coward boyfriends. When he's playing with his coward boyfriends, he's not with the gopis. When he's with the gopis, he's not with anybody else, right? When he's with the cows, he's milking the cows. But this is the first Leela when all the different devotees of Krishna are together simultaneously relishing Krishna's beauty. Both the submissive gopis and the contrary ones like Radhika smiled blissfully while looking at Krishna with love-laden glances. The gopis always play with Krishna and enjoy love sports in the forests of Vrindavan. While gazing upon him, they looked like thirsty chakori birds, continually drinking the ambrosial radiance of his moon-like face. Right? The chakora bird only looks at the rain cloud for water. In the same way, the gopis found satisfaction nowhere else but in Krishna's face. With unblinking eyes, they took Krishna within their hearts and lovingly embraced him. During the festival of lifting Govardhan Hill, everyone tasted the greatest ecstasy. To lighten the heart of his beloved friend Krishna, now to make some jokes, now Madhu Mangal comes in with his humor. Madhu Mangal said, "Oh, dearmost friend of the whole world, please listen to my words. By my Brahma Tejas, my spiritual potency, I will fill you with happiness. When I am here as your friend, why are you troubling yourself by lifting Giriraj? So I'm here as your friend. Why do you need to lift this mountain? Oh, lotus-eyed one, just order me, and I will hold up this great mountain on the tip of my golden stick. You must be exhausted from holding the hill, so now relax and take some rest while I hold the hill." So Mother Mangal is cracking jokes like this. Yashoda then addressed her son, "Oh, my darling child, You always act impudently due to the force of your uncontrolled senses. Mothers are always chastising. This is the nature of mothers. Out of love, they're always chastising. For years, we peacefully observed the Indra Yagya, but then you abruptly stopped it. She's telling Krishna, you naughty boy. We were peacefully worshipping Indra. Then you stopped this yagya, and now look, there's thunderstorms and rain clouds, and you have to carry a heavy mountain. Look at the trouble you've created. Disregarding the demigods never brings auspiciousness. How can one find fortune if he shows enmity towards the demons or the demigods? In the presence of these two fears, how can we enjoy living here? Although Krishna's body is inexhaustible and ever blissful, Yashoda thought that he had overworked himself. So she's a mother. She was also concerned this mountain must be very heavy. Considering that, she expressed her motherly affection by reaching up to lovingly touch his lotus hand that held the hill. While doing this, she said, "Aho, how can your hand, which is as pure and soft as fresh butter, bear the heavy weight of this mountain without any other help or support? Oh Giriraj, please be compassionate and give me a boon. If you are actually some worshipable god, then do something to become soft and lightweight so that Krishna will not feel any distress. Oh honorable one, all of my son's actions are in accordance with the instructions of scriptures and saintly persons," right? So I think some of your mothers, you may have the experience when your son falls down, hurts himself, and he says, "Oh mom, I got hurt. Then you might rub that part of his body, the knee or the elbow or the head. "Oh, are you okay? Are you okay?" Right? This is a natural reaction when you have motherly love. In the same way, Mother Yashoda was like touching Krishna's hand. "Oh, you're carrying this heavy hill. This is so heavy for you. It might be hurting your hands." So then she prays to Giriraj that if you're actually worshipable, then do something to become soft and lightweight, so my Krishna will not feel any distress. Madhu Mangal said, "Mother, do not speak like this. How can you say that Krishna is in distress? Listen, what good is that angry Indra done for us? He brutally stacked us with his dense dark clouds and fierce lightning bolts. Now just appreciate the dazzling sweetness that Krishna has manifested in his pastime of lifting Giri Govardhan. Had Indra not become angry, then we would not have had the chance to relish this nectar through our eyes." So Madhu Mangal is saying that, why are you chastising Krishna? My friend is innocent. It is Indra to be blamed. And good thing Krishna lifted this mountain, because now we can all relish the sweetness of Krishna holding this mountain. Mother Yashoda replied to Krishna, but Madhu Mangal, "O bold one, holding a heavy load over the head can never be a show of sweetness. Lifting the enormous weight of Giriraj will cause one to become distressed and disabled." Mother Yashoda is thinking, he's carrying this heavy mountain. What if he gets hurt? Just see, the locks of curly hair on Krishna's forehead are wet from perspiration. His face has dried out and become pale like a lotus, wilted by the snow. His hands and feet have a ruddy color. How can a mother's heart tolerate seeing such hardship? Krishna said, "Mother, there cannot be anything more fun than this. Why are you worried about me? For nothing. Just see, the great mountain of Govardhan is floating on his own in the open sky. I told you before that this body of mine is but an instrument of his will." Krishna tells Mother, calm down. This is the classic response, right? When mothers call you and say, "What are you doing? Why are you not here? You're so late." Then the first thing we say is, "What are you worried about? I'm fine. I'm with my friends. I'm having a good time. Look, this mountain is actually floating on its own. I'm just barely touching it. I'm not even doing anything." Yashoda replies, "My dear son, that may be true, but how can you not be tired after standing here for so long and holding that mountain with your raised arm? Oh, intelligent one, I will believe what you said if Govardhan gives up the joyful association of your lotus hand and then flies around the sky playing on his own." Oh, you say he's floating? Then let's see him fly around the sky. Then I'll believe you. Otherwise, I'm going to keep thinking that you're holding the mountain and you're tired. Oh, I see now it's 6:21. Okay, I'll read one last paragraph because this is so sweet, you know. I'll read one last comment from Madhu Mangal and then we'll open it up. Madhu Mangal said, "O Queen of Vrindavan, don't you know that this great mountain is sitting on the lotus hand of Krishna by the strength of my mantras and special powers? Therefore, my friend is not feeling any pain from holding Giriraj. This is natural because everyone is favorably disposed towards the Lord of their hearts." So Madhu Mangal is taking the credit. He's saying that actually it's not that the mountain is floating, It's not that Krishna is holding up anything. It's my mantras that have the special power, which is why, Govardhan is not putting any strain on Krishna's hand. And therefore, he's just there. Krishna is just standing there. Don't worry, mother. Everything is fine. So in this way, this goes on. Actually, this chapter is quite a few pages. I encourage you to read this section if you have some free time. And there's some very beautiful exchanges actually coming up later on, where there's one very beautiful pastime, and Subal is actually feeding tambula to Krishna with his own hands, and many, many beautiful pastimes. The gopis pass comments looking at Krishna, and Radharani is looking at, when Radharani at one point looks at Krishna and Krishna starts to shake, he cannot handle that direct glance from Radharani. And when Krishna starts to shake, the whole mountain shakes and all the coward boys get afraid. So they lift up their sticks, to support the mountain because it's shaking, And then Madhu Mangal cracks all these jokes because he saw what happened. He saw that Krishna was exchanging glances with Radharani, which made him shake. So he tries to cover it up by saying, oh, you must be feeling weak, my dear friend. Let me bring you something to eat. He doesn't want others to know that this is why the mountain was shaking, that Radha and Krishna were exchanging glances. Like that, so many wonderful pastimes happen. But the point that I wanted to make was that by reading about these activities underneath Govardhan Hill, and by hearing about Giriraj, which the gopis are calling as Hari Dasa Varya, the best of the devotees of Lord Hari, then we will understand more what is true love. And as we understand what is true love more and more, and as Prabhupada said, as we follow the examples of these great devotees in Vrindavan, then we will also basically create our path. We will also walk the path of going back home, back to Godhead, for which it is very important, I guess, to understand the nature of true love and to have the examples to whom we can follow. So this was my presentation for today. Please forgive me if there were any shortcomings or I said something inappropriate or wrong. Please feel free to correct me. If anybody has any reflections, because all of you are actually, I can see here most of you are almost all senior devotees, older than me also. So I feel like a child here. Please feel free to share some reflections. I would like to hear your reflections on these topics. What do you think about this topic of understanding what is true love and the glories of Govardhan? Please share any reflections you might have on this topic. I would love to hear. And I think others also would appreciate any reflections that any of you might have.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare-
This is Bhakti Priya.
Hare Krishna Mats.
I have a question. It was wonderful class, by the way. The pastimes and the loving relationships and how Brajvasis feel about Krishna. My question is with regards to gratitude. So when Krishna gave us so much, right? He protected us from so many calamities. He gave us this parampara. He gave us Prabhupada and so much literature and all the good things, association, temple services and everything. How do we show gratitude? How to be grateful for what we got here? Like how? So anything, any thoughts or adding anything on that?
Let me ask you a question. Do you have any children?
I have 2 daughters.
You have 2 daughters. If I were to ask your daughters, how can you repay your mother for all that she has done for you? What do you think they'll say?
I don't know. They might say, I will take care of you, maybe.
I'll take care of you. No matter how much they take care of you, they will never carry you in their womb, right? They will never
No.
breastfeed you. They will never wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning after half an hour of sleep to put you back to sleep. There's no way to repay. So actually, Prabhupada says there's no way to repay the acharyas and those who have given us Krishna consciousness, because the gift is so great. The gift is so invaluable. And I also personally feel that, but I've asked this question to my mentors and other people, and I've also read in Prabhupada's purports. There's 2 ways to give back, actually. We can never fully repay. There's 2 ways to partially give back. And the first is that whatever we have given, we really treasure it and we really appreciate it and respect it and, take care of it. And what have we been given? We've been given this process of Shravanam and Kirtanam, hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna. So these practices that we do of chanting, deity worship, reading Prabhupada's books, we really do it as best as we can, depending on where we're at. This is one very powerful way of showing our gratitude and appreciation for the gift that we have received. Another way, for example, for your daughters, for instance, to really give back what they have gotten from you is they have to relive the experience. So when they become mothers, they should remember, oh, all the things our mother did for us, waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, never feeding us, just store-bought food from a can, like sometimes you see in sometimes parents aren't able to provide so much for their children. So my mother cooked for us and took care of us. So in the same spirit, your daughters will show love to their children because they know what a wonderful mother you were, then they can repay it to their children. And that's how they will repay the debt that they owe you, by giving that love to the next generation. In the same spirit, Prabhupada says that we have received Krishna consciousness, this invaluable gift, we should treasure it, but then we have to pass it on. And that is why sharing Krishna consciousness, however you can, if you're a housewife, you can make cookies and your husband can give it to somebody at work. That's sharing Krishna consciousness, right? There's so many opportunities for us to be instruments. And sharing doesn't just mean book distribution and preaching, by the way. Sharing also means taking care of other devotees. Devotees need the most help, actually. To inspire a new person in Krishna consciousness is actually not that challenging. I'll be honest with you. I've been distributing books for so many years. I've preached to so many people. To get someone excited about Krishna consciousness is not that difficult. But to hold somebody's hand as they walk the path is so much more work. It is so much more work, right? Because devotees, we go through our ups and downs. When you do an artha nivritti, in your bhajan, in your spiritual practice, so many ups and downs come, and to hold somebody's hand and give them strength and encouragement and inspiration and help them see that even in their difficult moments, Krishna is taking care of them. That kind of work, when we do that kind of work, that is a very powerful way to show our gratitude and to give back for what we've received. Is to actually assist somebody else in their spiritual practice. What do you think? Any comments on my question, on my reflection?
No, it's very powerful answer. Many times we might do services, but then we are very reluctant to do preaching to others or family members or children and all. So that's very it's very it's a good suggestion. I think I will try to focus on that going forward.
Yeah, and remember,
Prabhuji.
And preaching can also happen to other devotees. If some devotee comes to you because there, some struggle is there, or some, or that is also preaching. Actually, to help some devotee stay a devotee is also preaching.
Yes, Prabhu, I agree.
So
that's what my mentor did also, right? Premananda Mataji helped me when I was going through so much trouble, and how I can repay somebody else as well.
When you have to take somebody else through that, then you realize, wow, this is so much patience.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for such a young age. You are so wise. I'm very proud to see young generation preaching and guiding the fellow generation. So it's amazing.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else have a reflection or comment?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Can you hear me, Prabhuji?
Very, very well, Prabhu. Can you introduce yourself?
My name is Mohan Leeladas, so don't go by the name on the phone. It's my wife's phone. Prabhuji, I actually have two questions. One is a follow-up of what Bhaktipriya Mataji just said. Something that I've been meditating upon. We've received so much, the most valuable gift that we can get, right? Krishna consciousness. So the two-part question I have is, the first thing is, there's this doubting soul mentality. Meaning, earlier you said, right, what is the scientific proof that this is Krishna's foot, right? And you said, just take the word of the Acharya, right? But the doubting soul mentality is, that I have to do it on my own, I have to rationalize it and whatnot. How to overcome that mentality? First thing, Prabhuji. I can ask the second part, or I can wait after you answer.
I would love to. I'll share some reflection on this, and then if any of the other devotees online have something they would like to add, would be very grateful if any of you would like to add to this. There is a in the I believe it's in the 4th chapter. I can't remember the exact chapter right now, but there is a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm blanking right now, but basically the verse, anything that's done without faith or that's done by the doubting soul does not produce a result in this life or the next. In the purport, the acharyas actually explain there's two kinds of doubting souls. The first kind of doubting soul, he doubts the process. That's one kind of doubting soul. The other kind of doubting soul doubts his ability to actually follow the process. You know what I'm saying? So, and the acharyas explain that of the two, one who doubts, will I make it? That kind of doubt is more dangerous than doubting the process. Because when you doubt the process, those doubts can be resolved by hearing from senior devotees, by reading the scriptures. But I think your question has more to do with the second kind of doubt. Is it that, you know, how will I follow the process? How am I supposed to practice this process? Right? Like, or I can do it on my own. I don't need any help from anybody else. Am I right in understanding your question?
Yes, Prabhuji. I think that's spot on. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for that, there's a simple solution, which is that it's kind of like, you know, when you try, again, I'll use an analogy with children, because many of you might have children. Do you have any kids, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So what I've observed with children, because I've also, and sometimes also when you train younger devotees, is you see them doing something that's not right, you know, and you almost want to say something, but I don't know if you have this experience. Sometimes when you tell your kids too many things, they almost get irritated. They're like, Dad, I got this, leave me alone, right? Even if you know that you're right, right? In that case, you only have one solution. You have to just let them make mistakes. And frankly, that's one of the biggest lessons in life, that we might think I can do it on my own. I'll do it on my own. But then you might realize after 5, 10, 15 years, not you, but this person who has this doubt, this person might think, you know, I read in the scriptures that I'm supposed to be crying when I chant the holy names. I'm supposed to be free of lust, envy, anger, greed. I'm supposed to experience these deep transformations of heart. Krishna is talking about the 13th chapter, items of knowledge. Nothing is happening. How come I'm not experiencing these things? Why am I still affected by these qualities and these emotions? And at that point, we realize, oh, wait, maybe there's something about the way I'm practicing Krishna consciousness. There's something is a little off. You know, like if you're a software coder, you might try coding something, the result doesn't come out right. You might think maybe there's something wrong with the logic that I'm using to write this particular code. You know, if you do the same, if you get the same mistaken result every time and you keep writing the same code, that means we're not paying attention. So I think if we're attentive, we'll come to realize that, you know, maybe there's some sort of mistake in the way I'm doing it. Another really powerful lesson, another really powerful instruction that's there in the scriptures is we have to be impressed by the example of great souls. When we see a great soul in Krishna consciousness, somebody who truly has bhakti, and I don't just mean like the knowledge of bhakti, right? I don't just mean the practice of bhakti. I mean like they have devotion. They have devotion coming out of their pores. You can feel it in their presence. When they speak about Krishna, when they look at Krishna, when they lead kirtan, you are moved, right? And actually it's explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita that when you are in the association of such a person, their devotion will reflect upon you like a shadow, right? Just like I'm sitting here, if a light is shining from here, my shadow is falling over there, you might walk into my shadow. This is called chaya bhav, right? So the shadow of my emotion falls upon you, right? In the same spirit, when you're in the association of some great soul, the shadow of their emotion, of their devotion might fall upon you, and you will feel something different that you've never felt before. And I think when we are moved by the association of great souls, then we look at them and we realize they didn't do it on their own. They took the help of the acharyas, and they have a guru, and they have mentors, and they have people who, and maybe I can take their help. So I think it's also a question of, sometimes it might be a question of, you know, also looking for that great soul and being really moved by their example of devotion. Of course, I don't know about your personal life. I don't know anything about you, to be honest with you. So I'm making a very general comment here that actually the association of great souls is the root from which bhakti begins. And I found a very practical sense. Frankly, for me, I wouldn't have left my job and done all these things if I wasn't inspired by the souls that I came in contact with in Krishna consciousness. And seeing their example, naturally, I felt like I want to take help from them. So I would say two things. One, life is a great teacher. So if we think that we can do it on our own, then okay, let's try it out, see how far we get. And that'll teach us, just like, you know, with the children, they're doing a math problem wrong and you know that it's wrong. Well, let them get an F on this test. Then next time they'll come to you and say, hey, Dad, can you help, please? So sometimes that is required. That bending is required. And the other lesson is sometimes we're just really impressed by someone who has true devotion, and impressed by their devotion, our doubts, our insecurities just go away. And we look at them and we think, wow, can I be like you, please? How can I be like you? You know? So those are my two thoughts. Any reflections on that? What do you think, Prabhu?
No, I think that was very beautifully put, Prabhuji. I think taking that one deeper step of, you know, where do I find inspiration and how do I keep on inspired. I think sometimes get carried away with life and we stop to look at the source of inspiration. I think the 2 points that you put together was very inspirational for me. I think for more contemplative, I should contemplate on that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you
Yes,
for your
yes, Roger. The second part question is something that I've been thinking recently. Is just like how we have received a lot in spirituality from many people, right? At the same time, materially also, meaning, you know, our parents or siblings or friends or colleagues, you know, they poured a lot into us, you know, to the position wherever we are in life, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm feeling is, and in I think most cases, not even some cases, there is a hesitation for me to speak to them about Krishna consciousness because of, you know, maybe in the past I've tried to give it to them, but they were not responsive or whatnot. But at the same time, I feel that life is running out for me, running out for others, and there's, you know, and because I received so much from them, I should be giving back something, but something in me hesitates, right? How to overcome that?
That's a good question. It's a really nice question. I've thought a lot about it also myself, because I'm also of an Indian background, so I have a lot of family and friends and cousins and things like that. See, the reality of the matter is, if you look at it factually speaking, for some reason, I don't know why, but it's quite difficult generally to preach to people or share our spiritual life with people who are very close to us. If you look at even Srila Prabhupada's case, he wasn't able to make his wife into a devotee. Most of his kids are not devotees, right? There's a famous saying that even Jesus couldn't preach to his family members. He had to leave his village and go away and then go preach somewhere else and come back successful and famous with a lot of followers. So I have this experience, just practically speaking, in my life. I practice Krishna consciousness. Everybody in my family knows that I serve in ISKCON. I was a full-time devotee, and, I shaved my head and all these things. Everybody in the family knows these things about me. So occasionally some of my cousins will reach out because they're stressed out, or like recently one of my cousins reached out because she's going through a divorce and she wanted some advice. So occasionally, every now and again, some friends from high school and college will reach out. But generally, I've found with people who know us before we came to Krishna consciousness, at least in my experience, it was best to just leave the ball in their court. If they ever want to reach out and ask me like, hey, how do you chant? How do you meditate? What is the message of the Gita? Please tell us. Then I share, because also it's best, right? You cannot share much with somebody unless they're themselves curious. And I've found, especially with people who know us from before our Krishna consciousness, they see us in a certain way. And it's very hard, almost impossible for them to shift their perspective about who we are. You know what I'm saying? It's very difficult, almost impossible. Like, take, for example, my parents, for instance, they're my parents. It's not like I can share anything, like spiritual or deep with my dad. I mean, we talk, but it's not like my dad is going to ask me for my advice on things, like especially Indian fathers, they don't do that. I don't make a stereotype, but you know what I mean? In general, you can't go and preach to your father. If I was like, what do you mean you're going to talk to me about life? What do you know about life? I gave birth to you. So in general, but my mom is, on the other hand, she's very inquisitive. She asks me a lot of questions. What is the Gita's version of karma? Why do you worship God? She's from a Jain background. So my mom asks a lot of questions. So then I respond. We have a good dialogue about these things. My point simply is that with people who are so intimate with us and so, like, you could say they see us before Krishna consciousness, at least I found the best is to just leave the ball in their court. And when they naturally go through life's ups and downs, which they will, believe me, many of your friends will experience relationship issues, professional issues, health issues. They'll look in their circle and they will know, you know what, man, the only guy I know who has some sort of gyan, some sort of wisdom is this fellow. Let me call him up and ask him, hey, man, you're chanting all these years. You're a pretty happy, sorted, settled guy. You tell me, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this life disaster? So you just let them come to you. That was my experience, but maybe something else might work better for you. But I found that it's best to just let them inquire instead of trying to, present something to them. And generally, I found that over the years, a lot of people have asked, a lot of my cousins, family members, friends, many times have asked. Every time I go to India, they always ask, like, why? And then it's fun because many of them have so many misconceptions. And then when they hear me explain things, they're like, oh, we didn't know Krishna was like that. We thought he just danced with other people's wives. I've had that question so many times, why Krishna is with other people's wives like this. So anyways, that's my reflection on this topic.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I think that's the stance I've taken, but recently I feel I'm feeling guilty about it, but I think that reassurance helps. If we leave the ball in their court, someday hopefully they will Thank you. That's very helpful.
Sure. I'll share one last point then. If you're feeling guilty in the sense that you want to share more Krishna consciousness and you feel that time is running out, I'll tell you right now, there are thousands of people in our universities, in our malls, going to Target, set up a book table. Just go out. There are thousands and millions of people in Chicago who are desperate for spiritual knowledge. And trust me, they're there. We distribute books. I mean, I know it's COVID, so please take precautions. I'm not telling you to go out and distribute books right now, you know. My point is there is no shortage of people who are desperate for spiritual knowledge. So just find new creative outlets, you know, go to the mall, set up a little island once a week, you know, go to Walmart, set up a table outside. There's tons of people and they'll take books and they'll talk to you and they'll tell you all about their life and they'll ask questions like, hey man, how do I get over this, man? Can you help me give up drugs, man? What do you have for me? Tons of questions. So trust me, if you're feeling any guilt, any pressure that you want to let Krishna consciousness out, forget about your family and friends. Go to Walmart, go to the mall, go to the universities, and people will happily take books and happily tell you about their life.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That's very beautiful. Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Good luck.
Very nice. Prabhu.
Far exceeded our time, no? Do we have time for maybe anybody else has one last question or comment?
Prabhu, if you have more time, I'm not sure whether we can spend more time with us.
I have time, but I think maybe if nobody else has any questions, then I think we should end. I have time. If anybody has a question or a comment, I would love to hear.
I was feeling that these are very practical questions and amazing answers. I'm really impressed and very happy to hear those answers. Really helpful for me, especially.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you. Anybody? I don't see any questions on YouTube. Anybody here have any questions?
Or reflections? Anything from what we heard today from Prabhupada or reflections are also very nice.
If no one has question, I have a question, Prabhuji, if you permit.
In the room. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. After you, we have a question in the room, but after you.
No, go ahead. I'll go last.
Okay.
So we're talking about the 2 finger and the 2 inches too
You
short.
can see yours. Adam, speak up loudly.
2 fingers too short represents our effort and Krishna's mercy.
Yeah.
So this question came up about Krishna's mercy.
Mm-hmm.
If God is all merciful, like that's one of his attributes, it seems as though that he offers his mercy only to a select few individuals. So now I was envisioning like if there's a pandemic, like a town or a village, a doctor comes up with the cure, it's going to make the cure accessible to everyone. If he excludes some people and gives it only to several individuals in the town who are sick, and one would question his morality. So I guess I'm asking, we see a lot of people who aren't aware of Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness. And if Krishna hypothetically were all merciful, it seems as though that Bhakti would be more accessible to more people.
Right.
So that's just my question.
So Bhakta Adam is asking that Krishna is all merciful and his mercy is available for everyone, but yet we see that only some of us get his mercy, right? Like right now on the call, there's 14 of us. Probably the population of Naperville is about 900,000 people. So, so why is Krishna's mercy only going to a select few, right? Well, first of all, we have to know that the phrase all merciful means that Krishna's mercy is available for everyone. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to get the mercy. The way Krishna's mercy works, Sri Vishnu explains in Madhurya Kadamini, is that it follows the will of his devotee. So Krishna himself, he has given the charge of giving him to his Madhyamadikari or his devotee. And his devotee decides and prays, Krishna, I hope that Setu Mataji becomes a devotee. I hope that Amrita Keli becomes a devotee. And when Krishna prays, when the devotee prays on our behalf, then Prabhupada explains Krishna puts a little bhakti credit in our bank account. I hope Panduranga Gopal becomes a devotee. When your guru prays for you, that I hope all my disciples become strong in spiritual life, then Krishna listens. Oh, my devotee wants these devotees to become devotees. Okay, great. I'll put mercy into their bank accounts. So we get Krishna's mercy through his devotees. This is how the bhakti process works. Krishna has designed it that way. He's not available on a one-on-one basis, so to speak. You cannot just go up to Krishna and say, mercy, give. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to go to his devotee because that requires humility. It takes more humility to bow before a person than to bow before God. Anybody will bow before God, but to bow before a person takes a lot more humility. And Krishna wants humble, soft, butter-like hearts. And therefore he designed it that way, that you want my mercy, I'm all merciful. I'm available to anybody, whether you are a tribal living in the regions of Africa, or you're like a dog who just happens to be the pet of a devotee, my mercy is available for you. but you have to be associated with a devotee. In the CC, very beautiful. I remember reading this. The house of Shivaram, not Shivananda Sain, the other one with S, Shrivas, house of Shrivas. It's described that Mahaprabhu gave mercy to Shrivas's servants who weren't even devotees just because they happened to work in the house of Shrivas. So that little bit of link, connection with the devotee, that's how Krishna's mercy flows. So his mercy flows through his devotees. That's why he's all merciful, because he's merciful to anybody who his devotee chooses to give mercy to. Does that sort of answer your question? Okay. I think, Prabhu, now we can take your question. It'll be the last. We'll end on a sweet note with you.
Thank you, Prabhu. First of all, it's an amazing class, and I really like the answers, the questions. So it inspired me to ask you. I want to understand. It is not anything like challenging or anything.
Sure.
My question is, in your presentation, you brought a verse from 10th Canto, 9th chapter, 18th verse, which is my favorite verse. Somat hu sunnagatra. That's what you mentioned there. In that Prabhupada, I was reading this one. I was not able to understand. Prabhupada translates the word-to-word translation.
Mm-hmm.
It says sunnagatraya. Prabhupada translates that as a unnecessary labor. But in presentations or in purports or in the lectures, we hear that we have to do a labor. The effort has to be there. Then the mercy comes. When those two are there, then it is fruitful. But I'm not sure why that was in word to word. Prabhupada translated that as unnecessary labor, but you don't see that in the translation. So it's going on my mind for a couple of days. So if you can clarify that, that will be really helpful.
Very interesting. So Prabhu's question is, in the verse that I quoted, Swa Matu Swinnagatraya, because of Mother Yashoda's hard labor, her whole body became covered with perspiration, and the flowers and comb were falling from her hair. When child Krishna saw his mother was thus fatigued, he became merciful to her and agreed to be bound. So this is the point in the pastime when Krishna, seeing the efforts of Mother Yashoda, his mercy Shakti arises, melts his heart, and he allows himself to be bound. Now in the Sanskrit, there is a phrase Swinna Gatraya, which Prabhupada translates as, when Krishna saw his mother perspiring all over because of unnecessary labor. Now, Prabhu's question is, why is her labor considered unnecessary when in fact it's her labor that inspired Krishna's mercy? If she hadn't done so much hard work, then Krishna's would not have seen, Krishna's mercy potency wouldn't have arisen as a result of seeing her determination. So why is her labor unnecessary? I don't know. That's a really good question. I didn't even notice that actually. I think maybe what we can do, Prabhu, is I can read some commentaries and I can get back to you to see if any acharyas say anything that might hint at why Prabhupada uses the phrase unnecessary labor. This is complete mental speculation, so please don't quote me on this, but I think one perspective could be that Krishna was thinking, you're trying to tie me, I'm God. This is unnecessary. What do you think you're doing? Like, if I want to be tied, but if I don't want to be tied, I'm not going to be tied. So it's totally up to me. And maybe Krishna himself was surprised that even though he didn't want to be tied, his heart melted and his mercy Shakti arose and he allowed himself to be tied, because Krishna's probably thinking, this is useless. You think you're going to tie me with ropes? Like, I can lift mountains. What is your rope going to do? So, but that's just a speculation. I don't know if it's based on anything.
I like that.
So, I'm just looking at Prabhupada's commentary real quick, just scanning it really fast to see if there's anything that might. Prabhupada says right here, thus they gave up the idea of binding him, but in competition between Krishna and his devotee, Krishna sometimes agrees to be defeated. Thus, Krishna's internal energy was brought to work and Krishna agreed to be bound by Mother Yashoda. So it seems like her labor was not unnecessary because of her labor, he agreed to be defeated. So I don't know, Prabhu, that's one of those stump the Swami questions. Maybe you should ask Bhanu Swami or Swami. One of them might have a good answer for you. I don't. Thank you for the question, though.
Thank you I really like the class today. This is really amazing. And I hope we can get to hear from you again and again. I really appreciate from ISKCON Naperville. for spending your time, valuable time, 1 hour, 30, 20 minutes. Really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. Also, it was a nice opportunity for me to prepare my meditations on Govardhan, and I giving class is always a great purifying service, So I appreciate all of you listening and sharing your questions and reflections. That takes a lot, especially me. I'm a very ordinary person, so I appreciate all of you sharing your reflections.
Hare Krishna, Hare Shyam Prabhu. This is Premananda. Please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So happy to hear from you, and I really liked your last answer about unnecessary labor. Very nice. But thank you again. It has been such a long time seen you or heard from you. Just, I don't know whoever have given introduction about you. I heard some question there about you being so young and all that, but I just thought, since maybe some of the people here are not very familiar with who you are, I know you wouldn't want me to say this, but Hare Shyam Prabhu has taken his spiritual life very seriously for quite some time, even much younger than when he is now. But not only that, he has traveled with his spiritual master, His Holiness Sajinandana Swami Maharaj, in many countries, served him personally for many years, and given his service here in Kishori temple. I know you don't want me to say anything, but I think it is my duty to make someone understand here that this does not come without the mercy of devotees. And so this is something which will be helpful for people who don't know you to understand, where it comes from. I'm not giving you credit. I know you will give the credit back to your Guru Maharaj and the Guru Parambara. That is your position, but your age is not a criteria here at all. So I just wanted to share that with our people who do not know you, and wanted to thank you for coming and giving that presentation at Naperville. And we really hope you will come back again and speak soon. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
By the devotees like yourself that we're still here. So yeah, it's true. We're all the product of mercy. Definitely. 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
Hare Krishna.